very much. So just short introduction. My name is Dennis Castillo-Mit Oeze. I am a German coach for League of Legends for more than 4 years now. I've coached on various different levels. Last of which was in the ERL, the NLC, meaning the Northern League of Legends Championship for League of Legends. And so yeah, I've been the head coach for Kobe Esports. We reached playoffs, which was a very nice experience. And so now I'm happy to be here. If you would like to find me, my name on Twitter is at Castillo-Mit, so very easy. If you know my name, you can find me. All right, let's head right into it. So into the table of content. Today we will be looking at the qualities required for coaching in my own point of view, the approaches that there are existing, as well as my own approach to coaching in general. The mentality that I think you should have when you want to coach players, why and when people get into coaching, how you can improve as a coach, and how you find teams on various levels, because that sometimes is very hard. Okay, so let's get into the qualities. So, as a coach, you generally want to have a lot of game knowledge, right? If you can talk with your players about certain aspects of the game, that's always very helpful. There are coaches that don't need game knowledge, such as mental coaches, performance coaches that are mostly looking on your physical side of things. But if you are talking about a head coach or an assistant coach, a strategic coach, especially within the realm of League of Legends, it's more so about game knowledge and it is about most other things. Also very important is emotional intelligence. So how can you actually interact with the players that you have? How do you solve situations? How do you solve conflicts? Everything that goes around and how you're actually able to get the connection to your players. Because if you are good at game knowledge, that's fine and everything, and that will get you to some extent further up the ladder. But if you cannot get across to the players, if you cannot talk to them in the way that you wanted, if they have struggles telling the issues they have and sharing it with you, then that will be holding you back quite some time. Especially, I think coaching is hard work. When you look into being a player, obviously playing like 10, 12 hours a day, especially when you look into competitive, that's hard as well. No doubt about that. But as a coach, you have to basically teach the players what they are supposed to do, help them to learn how to play the game better. And if that doesn't work out, then that's a frustrating experience for you most of the time. And you can be very positive about it and still find some negative things. On top of that, you have to do preparation. So a lot of like on the side work, which sometimes leads to you actually having more time spent with preparation and the actual time watching your players play, which is also another factor, right? So if you see your players play but you can't play yourself, that kind of is on your own because you made the decision to be a coach and everything. But on the other hand, you see them doing mistakes and you kind of have the drive to teach them immediately what they're doing wrong, but you can't really interact in the game because that's forbidden by most of the leagues. And so if you do like scouting reports, if you do theory sessions, you prepare presentations just like this one, and all these kind of things are basically in your free time, not even in scrim time. That sometimes is very, very, very much work. And so you also need a lot of time because it's again not only you being within scrims, but if you're a good coach and you have a lot of fun with it, you prepare the scrims that you have, and you also, as I said, do scouting reports, you do all kinds of stuff around the sites, theory, individual sessions, vault reviews, and that kind of thing. And time is very, very interesting when it comes to coaching. It's, I think, more so stressful as a coach than it is as a player sometimes. Obviously, as a player, when you're in game and you fail something and then you feel the pressure on yourself, that's definitely happening. But as a coach, also, you need to just be willing to feel the pressure because sometimes it will be very, very hard. And so I have kind of in brackets high rank because it is not necessarily needed to be high rank, but it's going to give you an easier time getting into coaching, understanding your players. Because oftentimes players will say, okay, look at me, I'm a like grandmaster player, and this coach, he's platinum 4. How is he going to tell me anything about the game? And so if you are challenger yourself as a coach or even grandmaster and you talk to your players, there will be this angle of, hey, look at me, I play the game on a almost similar level as you do. You can trust me in the things that I say because I work a lot of time on the strategical aspect of the game. And so, you have these like great coaches like Goma, who was the head coach for SKTT1, currently also working for Dam1, if I'm not mistaken. And he struggled every single year to reach Diamond, but he's one of the greatest coaches. So in the end, high rank doesn't matter, but it offers you the opportunity to get into coaching a lot easier and get the respect by your players a lot easier most of the time, at least. Especially when you're in the lower leagues, when you're getting into the higher leagues, then that shouldn't be a problem because you are there for a reason and your players usually accept that you are knowledge about the game. But especially in lower leagues, in having high elo, that is something that is at least considerable, right? Okay, so let's go into the approaches of coaching. So the first approach that you have is having aspirations. And so when you have aspirations means I want to possibly do something as a coach long term. It doesn't necessarily mean that you want to go full time, but oftentimes that is what it includes. And so going full time means that you have to have a competitive mindset. You have to say, okay, how do I improve? How do I get better? How do I get the very best things out of my players in order to get the biggest success for them? That is also part that we go later on in like success of players and everything. You should be doing everything to advance. So not only okay I have to invest time to get better myself, but also one very great thing is connections. If you are a coach and you don't have the connections to either players or managers or other coaches, you are basically lost. The only reason when you can ever really get a chance at a great team is if they do open tryouts and they say, okay, apply to us, and then we will see if we actually have a position for you. And so superficial change of personality is one thing that a lot of coaches do, which I'm not a fan of. I'm always the way that I am. Because if you change your personality, superficially at least, to get more quote unquote friends or more so connections within the scene, and it makes you easier to reach people and to get into certain positions, then yes, that will make you have an easier time getting into the positions, but remaining in those positions is completely different from that part. Because then it's not only about, oh, I'm superficially like I'm a good guy, I'm a nice guy, I'm always there for you and everything. It's more so about, do you actually know what you're talking about? Can the players work with you? Because they themselves have aspirations and they themselves want to be, going to worlds, they want to be winning their playoffs, they want to be winning their league or whatever. And so if you are holding them back, you being a nice guy doesn't do much for them. And so they might change and say, okay, yes, you're a nice guy and everything, but we need someone that is doing stuff for us, that is teaching us, that's helping us to advance. And again, we have this on every single aspect. It's investment of time. If you have aspirations, you should be investing a lot of time, especially when you are currently on a team. So what you're looking at is, hey, how much time do my players invest and how much time do I have to invest, right? If you're on a full-time team with a gaming house, you usually spend around 10 to 12 hours a day about preparing stuff for the next day and then doing all the scrims that you have to do and all the reviews, having meals together and all that kind of stuff. And so when you do full-time, even if it's in the gaming house or if you do it remotely, 8 to 10 hours a day are the usual practice and you should definitely be willing to invest that kind of time. Okay, coaching out of pleasure, meaning that you have the desire to, do coaching. Coaching itself is a thing that you always liked. It's not necessarily only in esports, but it's also helping other people to just get better and seeing them improve, seeing them actually becoming a better version of themselves. Pleasure is a big thing that's also tying into the other two approaches I have. But if you look at pleasure, it's more so that you do things because you want them to do it, because you want to do them, right? It's less so because you want to achieve something with it. Just the general coaching is giving you pleasure, meaning that you don't necessarily have aspirations, which definitely can go with it, but pleasure is the main thing that you look for. And so usually coaches that coach out of pleasure have a great passion for coaching itself, but not necessarily for esports or not necessarily for League of Legends. They are also looking to be coaches on other aspects in life, meaning coaching people for school so they have better grades, coaching people for physics so they can be a better version of themselves physically. They can be mental coaches. And so it not really is coming down to League of Legends itself, but the pleasure for coaching itself can translate obviously into being an esports coach, and that is kind of the things that some of the coaches have as their approach. And so the level of play is less of interest. Yes, it's of interest to some extent because it's important for you if you want to have pleasure that you talk with people that are willing to learn. If you don't have people that are willing to learn, you probably have less interest when you have or when you look to have pleasure, right? And so you want to express yourself, you want to get along with everyone, and you want to generally have a very nice time with everyone that you talk and everyone that you work with. And so what you're mostly looking for is just having the pleasure, which is the general approach that you have is, if I don't have pleasure with this team, I'm not going to coach them because that is not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for to just have a team to coach them. I want to do this because I have pleasure with it. And so in terms of investments, it can be similar to the one that we had before, so 8 to 10 hours a day, depending on how much you want to invest. But it can be way, way less. It can be like 3 hours a day, like 4 hours a day, even less if you only stream every couple of days. And so it's really coming down to the level of play that you are currently coaching at. And so it can be okay. We have scrims every 2 days for like 3 hours, and you don't really prepare anything, and you don't really do any like VOD reviews, or anything, right? That's totally fine because you do it for your pleasure. And contrary to the aspirations, when you have aspirations, you want to progress, you want to be better, you want to, advance into higher atmospheres of being coaches, and sometime in the future make a living off of it, like I do. Like I'm an inspiration coach. So let's go into the last one, which is just generally helping other people. So if you help other people and that is your like most desirable thing, and that's your approach to coaching, that's very altruistic. And you have altruistic interests, which means I want to help others. I don't care about myself, even if I don't like what I do, because of the people that I work with or because of various other reasons that are surrounding my work as a coach. It's still in my best interest and like my biggest belief and my biggest interest to just help other people to progress in whatever they want to do. It can give you pleasure, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have aspirations, right? Again, all things go hand in hand, and of everything, there's something in all the other approaches as well. But if you want to help other people, that's mostly what you're looking at. And the level of play rarely is of any interest because again, you don't have as much aspirations, and so you don't care if you teach some gold guys or if you teach some diamonds, right? If you have aspirations, you're looking to get those like grandmaster challenger teams and advance as far as possible. If you want to have pleasure, mostly you'll be looking at like platinum, diamond, low master teams. And so if you mostly are looking to help others, you don't have any issues with, having a bunch of iron guys and helping them to progress because your biggest interest is to be altruistic and help other people. And so you love to share your experiences. Like this is mostly why people get into, oh, I want to help others, right? So maybe there's a platinum guy and he says, I really like helping other people, and then he wants to share his experience with all the other gold guys. Okay, here's my story of why I got platinum. You can do this as well, and I can help you to get there, even like with lower ranked people. And so sharing the experience is mostly why these people want to help others. It's not because they have that big of knowledge when it comes to the League of Legends game. It's more so, hey, I have my experiences and I want to share them with you so you can actually profit from them. And so again, investment of time can vary. It can be like, I don't know, like some 5 hours a week up to like 20, 30 hours a week. It really depends on how much you want to invest your time into this. And most of the time, these helping other approaches, coaches that have this approach, will be solo coaching rather than team coaching. And so, investment can vary depending on how much you actually want to invest. So again, my approach to coaching is I'm an aspiration coach. I want to be at the very top as soon as possible. I'm currently studying, and so I have plenty of free time on the side, and so I'm looking to get the teams that I'm really looking forward to, teams that can actually achieve something. And I personally, I'm looking to get into LEC or LCS or at least some academy teams within the next 2 years. And for that to work, I have to invest time. I have to work with my players, individual sessions, VOD reviews, theory sessions, planning scrims, sometimes even double, triple block on a day. Depends on how much the players actually want to play, but you know, I started as someone that wanted to help others. I was this platinum guy that said, okay, I want to help other people to be just a better version of themselves. And so I started on a website that was called, I think, leaguecoaching.gg. And within like the first week or something, someone approached me and said, hey, do you want to coach a team? And I was like, oh, well, I mean, I just started coaching and I haven't really done anything like that before, but sure, I mean, I can have a look with it. And so that was really just the start to it, and I grew the interest and I became more competitive with every single split that went on, and I got more experience, and with more experience that led to more monetary interest. So when you get higher and higher up the ladder in competitive play, there will be opportunities for you to, okay, you get this much money if you play for us, especially as a player. As coach, less so, which I think is kind of bad, because when you have a good coach that can teach players, you can have better players than actually just buying the good players, like quote unquote, right? And so the more experience I got, the more I got hold of this entire universe of, hey, coaches get paid, players get paid, and they get like a couple hundred to like multiple thousands up to millions in a year. And that kind of interest led for me, okay, I want to pursue this as my career because I like the game, I like coaching in general, and also the money is, that's quite nice. And so my current goal is to be coaching in any major region. Again, last split I was with Kobe Esports, which was a pleasant experience for the most part. And so that's a major region. NLC is a major region, and I'm looking to coach in these kind of regions because those give um, the most people the chance to see me and see what I do as coach. And with that, I might be advancing with it. Right. Okay, so mentality when coaching. I have two quotes for you. The quotes are, my player success is my success, and coaches are just humans and can do mistakes. So let's go into the first one. My player's success is my success. And this is to some extent true, to some extent untrue. And I'm going to tell you why. So when you have managers, most of them that do like some mediocre work, so like not the outstanding ones, the mediocre, which is like the majority of the managers are just mediocre or bad, and they just look at results. And so when you are a coach and you look at, okay, I've been always like fifth or sixth place, and maybe even like at some point I demoted from my division, contrary to a coach that is always first or second place in his league, always on teams that are winning something. He seems a lot better than the other coach that is just quote unquote, looking bad. And so when my players have success and they play the game, they get first place, they get second place, and that's also on my resume, right? If they win, I win. And so that should always be my mentality. At one point, I made the decision this should always be my mentality. If my players succeed, I succeed. Because it's not only that if I'm a good coach, I'm advancing, because again, in lower levels, people cannot really differentiate between, okay, this is a good coach, this is a bad coach. It's more so about, is this coach having success or not? And is like the set of beliefs that he has, is that good? Is that what we're looking for in terms of coaching? And so the other one is coaches are just humans and can do mistakes. So again, when you have a bunch of players and they are having their own beliefs, especially when you have higher elo players, they tend to have strong opinions about certain things, and um, they tend to stay on their opinion, and you somehow have to convince them that you are the one that can teach them more than they already know. But if you do mistakes, they tend to trust you less and less. And so coaches are just humans and can do mistakes, which means, if I do something bad, that's something that I can learn from, because I'm also just a human. I'm not a god. I'm not knowing everything. And if the players understand that you are just a human and you are working with them instead of being like way up the hierarchy, then they will be appreciating you a lot more. Okay, how do you get how do people get into coaching, and like what are the reasons for it? So most of the coaches are just asked by others to help them, right? So if you have like a challenger player and he has a bunch of master friends and they just ask him, do you want to be our coach, do you want to help us to progress as a team? And then he maybe says yes, and then he likes coaching, and he gets more and more involved with it, and at some point he will be a really good coach, for example, right? That's mostly how it works. And also the same example can be done for lower level players, right? If there's some diamond 4 player or some diamond 3 player and he wants to get into coaching, because his friends are all platinum, they just ask, oh, can you actually teach me, can you tell me how this is done, can you tell me, how do I get better and everything, because you're high elo, you have to know how things work. And then he kind of grows the interest of, hey, maybe I could do coaching and stuff. I'm fairly knowledgeable about the game, I can do some stuff and that should be fine. Let's see how that works. So that is one point. Another point is realizing that you are not good enough. That's most of the time that's going to happen, right? You have players that are masters, that are like grandmaster, maybe even some lower level players, and they just think to themselves, okay, there is no shot that I ever make it as a player. I can never go full time, so I rather just concede it right now and just go straight for being a coach. And so there isn't that big of a deal actually, right? There are a lot of players that think to themselves, okay, I'm not good enough. I want to be a coach rather than a player. And this is good, like actually good, because you realize that, you don't have the drive or you don't have the capabilities to become like the outstanding player. And so you realizing that you're not good enough means that you open yourself up to a new path. Because if you're not good enough, but you still try and you try and you try, and you won't make it, you'll be even more and more frustrated and depressed. At some point, you will just quit it, and you completely left out the opportunity of I could become a coach. And so, one thing is also growing interest after experience as a player. And so, hey, I played like 1 or 2 splits, and I had this coach, and he was very, very bad, and I think I can do this better. This is like a lot of coaches that say this. I can do this better than the coach I had. And so they get into coaching after being a player for like 1 or 2 splits. And I didn't really like to be a player because it's so stressful, all the games I have to play. And, I have to play solo queue, I have to play competitive, I have to always perform, and I have a bad day. People will be like low key mad at me. And that way people often get interest into being a coach rather than a player, which is totally fine. It's similarly to like realizing you're not good enough. It's just that I don't have the aspirations to become the outstanding player. And so one of the like biggest example that you have is when coaches have been previously professional players. And so, like for example, Bjergsen, most recently, he was a player for years and years on end, and he just decided, okay, I want to be the head coach for TSM rather than playing another 1 or 2 years and maybe not having as much fun at the game anymore. And so now he transitioned into being a coach. And there's also other examples like Mithy, for example, um, who has been a player for quite some time. He was known in the EU scene, and now he's a coach for, I think it's Misfits. I'm not too sure about that one, to be honest. There was Colt, and Colt played for Unicorns of Love, and now he's also a coach for, I think it's 100 Thieves Academy. Not too sure about that one, but could also be main team. But yeah, reasons to get into coaching. And so now that you have made the decision that you want to be a coach, the question is, how do I get better? And especially for players, but also for coaches, there is YouTube content. There is so much content of various websites like Skillshare, Skill Set or something. It's there as well. And like Last Shadow, there's a lot of pro players that share their insights on coaching. And there's so much content that you can use to just improve yourself and higher your knowledge so you can actually compete with the knowledge with the player so that he respects you as a coach. There's also streams, again, the known names usually around the team like Last Shadow, Nemesis, like Midbeast sometimes, they do educational content, and watching these kind of things, you can improve from that for the most part. What you can also do is you can do VOD reviews, meaning that you watch games of ideally challenger or even competitive games, and you look at the situations that happen on the map and in specific lanes and everything, and you look at them and you see, okay, is this the most optimal way to play the game? And if you make a decision, okay, this is not the optimal way, like what ways can you come up with to make the situation actually be optimal, right? So is pushing this wave correct? Is this rotation correct? Do we need to set up vision here? Um, do you think that this itemization is correct? Do you think that your way that you mechanically play this fight is correct? All these kind of things you can watch in VOD reviews, and you just go through and through, and over some time there will be patterns that you realize, patterns that you see, patterns that you can see in every single game, and those you can apply every single game. And what you have to look for is actually just go out, test your theories and see if a lot of people are doing that. If you can see these patterns, you'll be becoming a better coach eventually. And so, like, the last thing I have on here is discussions with players, which is more so true if you talk with players that are way higher elo than you. So let's say like challenger, grandmaster players, and you talk with them about certain matchups, right? So like one thing that I want to put out here is simply because a player is high elo doesn't mean that he's smart or that he's correct about anything, but at least he has an estimate of, oh, is this actually a good matchup? Is this something that I can do with my champion? Are these within my limits? And so discussing specific champions, matchups, specific combo rotations, itemizations, runes, and everything with these kind of players, they give you insights. They shouldn't be always the benchmark that you look for because, again, as well as coaches are just humans and they can do mistakes, so are players. Even if they're higher, doesn't mean that they're automatically knowledge about everything. Okay, so then finding teams on various levels. So there are four common ways, which is Discord groups, personal connections, uh, Twitter looking for coach posts, and initial applications. Let's go through the first one. So Discord groups, there will be a lot of Discords. You can go around and just ask people. You can go into the official League of Legends Discord and you just ask people, is there anything where I can look for teams that I can coach? And so I can just look over to my Discord right now, um, and I can look, for example, um, this one here. It's called Diamond Plus Amateur and Collegiate, which is in an A Discord, right? So you can just go in there and you just ask, okay, I as a coach, I would like to coach some players. And you can also look into, again, the official League of Legends Discord, especially for US, where you just say, okay, I'm looking for a team to coach. I'm fairly new to coaching. I can be your coach. There will be also teams that look for coaches. And it's not only going to be like some very low elo players, it's always going to be at least some diamond teams. Okay, diamond teams are a good way to start out as a coach, right? So Discord groups are very useful. Personal connections is like the biggest thing. If you know people that know people, you can get the position. If you are not knowing the people, then you have issues actually knowing that there is a position open, knowing how to contact people in order to apply for it, and you also have the struggle of, if I don't know them, they cannot really have an estimate of how do I coach and how do I do stuff. So they rather want to look for someone else they already know because they don't want to take risks. League of Legends and especially like esports, the general scene, is very fast paced. And if you do mistakes, if you fall out of your league, if you demote or anything, things will get dire pretty fast. And so again, because a lot of people are looking onto results. If you're a manager, if you're a coach, and you are getting contacted by someone that is not proven, you rather want to find someone else that's already proven simply because your resume or your recent history of results could be looking bad simply because he was on your team and he didn't perform well, and so I have a bad result right now. Twitter looking for coach posts, meaning there will be teams, especially like some higher level teams and the ones that have some masters, grandmaster, challenger player, and to some extent, they are somewhat regularly putting out posts. So you just have to follow them and see when they're actually posting stuff. Oh, we're looking for a new coach for the upcoming split. So I think there was some post by Movistar Riders, which is a team in the Spanish European Regional League, the same level that the NOC is. They have been looking for a strategic coach, and so for example, I applied for it, right? Just to see if I have a shot at getting into the team. And so there are a lot of these posts, especially from lower level teams, but also some high level teams and ERLs that can be looking to get you on as a coach. If you apply for it, you can get in. And so the last thing is kind of initial applications. So if you are a coach and you are looking for a team, you can just message the managers, the CEOs, and it's some, for some teams at least, it's going to be the main Twitter page of these kind of people. You might notice, right? Twitter is the platform to look for. And so if you want to do an initial application, find out who you have to write them, look at me, I'm a coach, I want to be on your team, tell me what I have to do to convince you. And if they write you back, which, fairly speaking, sometimes that won't happen. But if they write you back, try to convince them and maybe you can get on their team. Right. That would be about everything. And thank you for watching. If you have any questions, put them in the chat right now. Otherwise, you can also message me on Twitter again at Castilmid. And that would be about my presentation. Thank you for watching.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Dennis. Great presentation. And then we have a lot of those interested in pursuing a coaching career, especially here at Compkin in our esports business degree. So that'll be definitely valuable information. Once again, if you guys didn't catch the whole presentation or you just want to review it again, get some of that valuable knowledge, all of these lectures will be available on our YouTube video or YouTube channel, at Kajak Esports after the event. So stay tuned for that, coming out in the upcoming weeks. But for now, if you guys have any additional questions that you'd like to ask Dennis, please send them in the chat and I can ask them right now. I have a few that's come in already. One from Ilias. Thank you for the presentation. What is your opinion on the current Finnish league scene? Do you believe it's remaining stationary when compared to the esports industry as a whole?
All right, so I think the Finnish esports scene is developing to some extent because I see players that I haven't seen before. And especially these kind of tournaments that we currently have are developing the scene because it raises more awareness for competitive. And that means if you raise awareness for competitive, people will become competitive, especially when money is involved. And so I think it will be developing no matter what. It's just a question on which pace it's going to be evolving. And compared to the general esports scene, I think it's going to be slower, at least in the beginning. And so it has to come down to how much time and how much effort actually is put into the Finnish scene to develop it.
Okay, yeah, perfect. A question from Andronimus. Has COVID influenced your ability to coach?
Influence my ability to coach. I think kind of, but not so much. I think the people that have been influenced by COVID the most are the ones that either play in boot camps or in gaming houses, right? So if you come together and you want to play as a team, which is a very common technique, right? So you get together into like one facility and you play like a week or two together within that facility, use all the time to do like team bonding and everything. That is very, very crucial. And like some people can't live in their gaming houses because it's simply not allowed and they can't really travel in between countries and everything. So for me personally, hasn't influenced that much because I'm rarely ever on boot camps because I'm not on the level that boot camps are something regular. But I think other people are heavily influenced by it, especially when you look into the offline finals. Like I haven't seen a single LAN within the last 1.5 years or something. And that is something I would like to visit like fairly soon again. But we have to see how that works.
Yes, I think we all would like to see the lands and then the in-person events start up again. It's a great part of the
Definitely, yeah.
industry. So we can jump into some of the pre-submitted questions here as well. What do you do to unwind, or how do you avoid burnout from playing too much throughout the day?
Um, I think like a common technique is standing up after every single game, taking like 5 minutes to breathe, get fresh air, like a cup of coffee, some water, everything. Some players do, they just play entire day and they can just deal with it. And I think that's unhealthy in the long run because you cannot maintain like 10, 15 games a day and still watch out for yourself physically and mentally all the time. But I have a lot of players that say, okay, I play like 4 games per day every single day. And then after every single game, I stand up. And when I have those 4 games done, then I don't play anymore. And so, you have to find your own middle ground of how much you actually care about myself and how much I invest time into, League of Legends, for example. I don't know, you can do CSGO and everything as well.
Okay. Perfect. Another pre-submitted question here is your opinion on how important mental and physical conditioning is for coaching. I know at least Kova has a few members of staff on the physical
Mm.
and mental conditioning side. So did you have the opportunity to work with them at all? And what's your opinion on those positions in esports?
So I hadn't had the opportunity to work with them because they have been mostly working in the CS:GO department. So that's kind of unfortunate. But I know that there is a person that I might work with later this year. So I think physical and mental health is very, very important. Especially when you have players that are coming new into like competitive, and just the sheer amount of time they have to play sometimes is a burden to them. And so if they're not watching out for themselves and they're just eating like greasy food, and they just bulk up over the time that they're playing these games and not watching out for themselves, that is long term a very, very detrimental thing. That is not only impacting your physical health, which can raise heart attacks and all that kind of stuff, but also mentally, because when you lose self-esteem, you lose self-drive, and that in the long run is just going to break your character.
Yes, exactly. Another pre-submitted question here is how impactful are patch changes for your coaching endeavors? Do you find it easy to adapt to these changes?
Um, I think it's fairly easy if you have those like small patches. I think when you have like big patches coming in, huge changes in the game, it's very, very hard to change. Especially when you already play so long with a team, right? If you already practice for like at least a month, or like sometimes people practice for years together, and there's changes to the game, and you just have to kind of make your way into what's changing, find out what's best and everything. That is a big challenge, definitely. And I think again, like small changes are fine, and maybe a champion falls out of favor. Maybe there's some other champions that come into favor, and so meta is shifting. That's fine, and everything with that is totally fine. I think when it comes to those big mid-season patches, pre-seasons, and having like huge changes on classes, then yes, that is very, very hard to deal with.
Yeah, that's understandable. And if it's a large change, it is more difficult to adapt. I see you have answered Ilya's question in the chat. You are a Supernatural fan, so
Yep,
thank you for
totally
that.
that.
Perfect. And I guess we can do one more question here just to end off. What is your favorite esports moment, be it in your own personal career or just generally for tournaments you've watched in the past?
So I think there's two at the moment. So my most favorite moment was I was on a LAN in Belgium, right? I'm from Germany, and so I rented a car, and then I drove across Netherlands, and I picked up all the players, and then we together moved to Belgium in this car on the same day, and we played a LAN for 2 days, and we got third place on that LAN. That was like the greatest experience I had. It was very, very fun. And then the other one was I and a friend. We watched the season 5 finale in Hanover, and I still have. I don't know if I have one around. There were those like huge cups of 100, I think 500 milliliters, and they had Championship Callisto on them. It's
Oh.
actually amazing. I still have like 20 of those. It's like I just yoinked all of them. But yeah, that was also very fun.
Amazing, and that's the exact reason why we would like to see COVID go away and we can get back to those in-person events, because that is always where the best memories are made, during those LAN events with friends.
Amen.
So thank you very much, Dennis, once again for your time. We very much appreciate it.